Hi everyone, I'm Jane, and today we are gonna get seriously abstract. Now today's video is not about you recreating this exact painting, although you're more than welcome to. What I want today's focus to be about though, is you thinking about abstract and trying to find your own expression using materials that you might already have on hand and just kind of getting lost in the process and seeing what you come up with. Please don't feel like you have to use all of the materials and tools and size of canvas that I use today. Like I said, use what you have on hand, use what speaks to you, and just start creating. For those of you who do insist on using nothing but the exact same materials though, there is a list in the video description below of all of the materials that I use today. Now let's get started. Okay, I have a 24 by 24 inch canvas and I've laid it out flat on my table just because I want to be able to work really loosely and let paint run and slide if I decide to do that. And it's harder to control that on an easel. So we're gonna paint flat today. Now I'm just gonna take some white paint, and I have this large palette knife that I'm gonna use to just kind of spread it on here. Now I don't have any kind of an idea about what I'm gonna paint today. I'm just gonna go kind of freeform and see what happens. Start slashing that paint across the canvas. Now, I'm not going to be real specific in, the techniques that I tell you I'm using or the materials that I'm using. I'll definitely, still tell you what I'm doing and what I'm using, but this isn't so much about you, learning how to make the painting that I'm making. I'm making an abstract as it comes to me, just purely off the top of my head. And because of that, you won't be able to recreate it. I mean, you might be able to do something that looks similar, but I think that that kind of defeats the purpose of abstract art. I think the abstract, for me anyway, it's a very organic process. It's something that just kind of happens, and to plan it out or to try and mimic another abstract, whether, I'm mimicking my own abstract that I've done in the past or somebody else's, I feel like it just can't be done. I don't think I'd be able to paint the exact same abstract twice because my mind would be in a different place each time. And, I like to just kind of see what happens and get ideas and make decisions from there. And that's really all I'm doing here. Just laying down some white paint, kind of scraping it in places to get it thinner, laying it down a little bit thicker in other places. And Mr. Moon is going to show up early today. Hopefully he'll get it all out of his system so we can have quiet for the rest of the video. Did you hear that, Mr. Moon? Okay, so I covered a good amount of that. What do I want to do next? Well, the very next thing I wanted to do was get rid of that horrible glare. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to wipe off my palette knife. And I think I'm going to get some black paint. So I haven't done an abstract, like a fully abstract painting in about a year. And I've been asked for it ever since I posted the last one. And if you haven't seen that, I'll link that up in the information iCard. I have no idea where the information iCard is right now at this angle. So if I point like over here, it's probably not over there. But anyway, last year's abstract will be listed in there. All I'm doing is I'm laying my palette knife completely flat. See, it's completely flat. It's not at an angle one way or the other. Completely flat. And I can get a very smooth streak of my colors. I really like the way that looks. And that's what I like to do in abstract, is just kind of see what happens when I do this. Oh, I really like the way that looks, and it's really satisfying to watch that. So I'm going to keep doing that. For me, it's more about the process of laying the paint down, not about the finished product. And, you know, hopefully, especially since I'm recording this, I hope the finished product is worth looking at. But, you know, sometimes it's not. And I don't have any paint right there in between the colors, right in this area. I'm not putting pressure, I'm not digging down into the paint. But I kind of like that, and I'm not going to go over that corner, I think. I like how solid white that is right there. So I like to get ideas and just go with them. So while I was streaking this, my next decision came, you know, do I keep taking the black up here, or do I go into another color? And I think I'm going to go into another color. All right, I'm going to get some unbleached titanium. I always get yelled at by somebody when I put my paint straight onto my canvas. And I don't care. You can yell at me if you want to. It's not going to change the fact that I put my paint straight onto the canvas and that I'll do it again. Just start smoothing that in the same way. And get it down into the black here. Another thing that I think painting abstract does is it gives you a little bit of, you know, a success. So if you're painting and, you know, we all go through those phases where we feel like nothing we paint works out. You know, you can go through several paintings for a while and just feel like nothing is working out. Do an abstract, but do not put pressure on yourself. If you put pressure on yourself with an abstract, you know, to come out with this masterpiece that people are gonna ooh and ah over, I think that you're setting yourself up for failure. Just do it and see what happens. So far, I'm really liking this. I know that I need to take care of these blank spots. However, I don't want to keep going over it just to cover that, because I'm going to ruin the textures that I have going on in here, and I'm really enjoying those textures. I'm going to take this smaller palette knife, and I think I am going to fill in this area that doesn't have a lot of paint. I'm going to just kind of start scraping whatever's wet, and if there's nothing wet, then I'll just grab some more paint. I'm going to kind of start pulling it into here. Still using it flat. I'm not using it on the edge and scraping. It's flat. And it looks like a lot of that paint, because it was very thin, is pretty dry. Right here, it's still pretty wet. And I can grab some more paint if I need to. We'll just see what we have here first. I actually am going to spoon some out onto my fancy new glass palette here. And if you guys missed it, you can see how I made this palette on Instagram. Just go find me there, and I've got a quick little 1 minute long video where I show you how to make one. It's super easy. You can do it for, you know, you might even be able to do it for free. And it's way easy to clean up, even if you let all of the paint dry on it. Okay, I'm gonna grab just a bit of black. So see, I'm just kind of going flat into it. I'm not scraping up a ball. And then I'm just wiping my knife through it. So see, I don't have a glob of paint at all. There's just a smear on the back. And then I'll come over into here and start smearing it on there. I just felt like that needed to come down and be pulled into the black. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna get a little slash of white. See, I just loaded it onto one side of my palette knife. And this line, I feel like I want to define that a little bit more. I'm just going to cut across it as far as that paint will go. And then roll my knife down a bit and streak it. Wipe it on a paper towel and just smear the rest of the paint that I laid down there. A little bit more. And I'm going to take it into that unbleached color. There, and I ended up covering most of those spots anyway. So another idea I just had was I have everything really kind of going this way, you know, except for my line here. What if I took a line like this one down this way with black on the other side? So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to load up with some black, again, just on the edge of my knife there. And start from about where I left that line off. I'm going to start dragging it down. And then smear it. You don't have to clean your knife off every time. I want to, because otherwise I'll just take all of that paint that I just picked up there and move it to the next spot. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, if that's what you want to see, if that's what you want to do, that's just not what I want to see right now. I like to kind of let the paints do what they're going to do. So like right here where that just kind of fizzled out, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to try and drag it out farther. I just wanted to break up a line there. I find that if you fight the paint, if you try and say, oh no, that's what you did, but what I want you to do is this, then a lot of times you end up overworking it and kind of lose some of the spontaneity of an abstract painting. And actually, I'm going to load it up on the other side. So I'm going to pull the paint toward me. That's how you load on the bottom. If you want to load on the top, you pull the knife away from you. So I'm going to come from this edge. I want this edge to be nice and dark, especially right there. Just a decision I made right now. And I will let those blend just a little bit there. So I know that a lot of people don't, get abstract art. And I think there's a few different things that go into that. First of all, it could just be that you're not exposed to it enough. If you encounter something that you're not familiar with, you might not understand it. And that doesn't mean that you don't get art or that you whatever. I know a lot of people like to say rude things about people who don't like particular types of art or whatever, but I think that that's wrong. And if you don't like abstract art, another part of that could be that, maybe you're spending too much time trying to see something real in it. We've all heard people say, or maybe we've even said, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. Well, there's no reason to try and interpret what the artist might have intended or what the artist was feeling when they painted it. There's no reason for that. I think that viewing abstract art is a very personal experience. It really, to me anyway, it doesn't matter what the artist intended. What matters is how the piece of art makes me feel. You know, if I look at a piece of abstract art and it makes me feel happy or sad or afraid or anything, that's my experience. And that is saying something, you know, my connection to the painting in that way is saying something about who I am as a person and, you know, maybe the experiences that I've had in life. I don't need to look at it and see what the artist or anybody else around me sees or what they feel, because we're all different people. I kind of like that. So my palette knife bumped against my camera leg here and I got a little bit of a weird spot. And I think I might kind of go with that. I'm just pressing my knife gently flat and pulling it right up, and it's kind of breaking up that line, introducing a little bit of texture. I think I'm going to get just a hint of black, very flat, just wiping my knife through it just to get a flat slick of black paint on the back. And I'm not squishing down into it, I'm just touching. I don't want to obliterate that texture. Just going to introduce some black into it. Streak it down a little. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to get a little bit more. See, I'm not painting anything real. I'm not saying, oh, this painting symbolizes, you know, the existential struggle of whatever. I'm not gonna do anything like that or say anything like that or make you guys feel like if you don't see some hoity-toity fancy thing in my painting that you just don't understand art. If you don't connect with this painting, if it doesn't make you feel anything, that's okay. What doesn't connect with one person may connect on a very deep level with another person. But isn't it the same thing with everything? I mean, we all watch, I would assume that most of us watch movies or TV shows or, you know, listen to music, but we all like different movies and TV shows and music because they connect with us in different ways. And it's the exact same thing with art. But also, let's think about music for a minute. You know, there's a lot of songs that have lyrics and, you know, a very specific meaning. You know, the singer in the song might be telling a story that has a very specific meaning, and you understand what they're saying, and that gives you some emotion, or maybe it doesn't, you know, but you understand what the point of the song is. But there's also music where it's just music. There are no lyrics. I know you can't see what I'm doing here. I'm doing the exact same thing I just did with the black, only I'm using white paint. So there's no lyrics, it's just music. And I think that that's a lot like abstract art. You know, here, there's no subject, there's nothing to tell you how you should feel or what you should think. So think of it like instrumental music. You may not like every piece of instrumental music that you hear. Some of it might just sound like noise or be boring, but then there might be a piece that really moves you and makes you feel an emotion. And I think that painting is the exact same way. Don't discount a painting because there's no subject to it, because you don't know what it's about. I'm kind of liking these little broken geometric blocks. I'm not typically into geometric abstract. It doesn't usually do anything for me, but I am enjoying this one. And I feel like there's almost another line insinuated right here, so I'm gonna go with that. Maybe you could, put on a piece of music that really moves you and that really makes you feel something, and paint an abstract while you listen to that. Maybe that will help kind of give you that connection between instrumental music or just music in general and abstract painting. There is a thing called synesthesia, and what synesthesia is when your brain kind of interprets different things in different ways. So there's a lot of different types of synesthesia. I think one of the most common ones, and it's definitely one that I have, is I can, in my mind, it's not like hallucinating. I'm not hallucinating, guys. In my mind, I kind of visualize sounds. So when I'm listening to a piece of music, I can see different geometric patterns and movements and colors. And it's not, sometimes it's something I have to focus on to be able to see it, but a lot of times it's just happening, even though I don't really pay attention to it. And I think that a lot of people have that and just assume that everybody does it. But I know that not everybody does it, which I thought was kind of weird when I found that out. And then I just thought I was weird. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm crazy. I'm like hallucinating at a yellow number 7 or a red number 5, or that singer's voice in this song sounds like aqua blue that's round on top and spiky on the bottom. That would be Joni Mitchell, by the way. That's what Joni Mitchell's voice sounds like to me. And I don't know why, but when I hear her sing, I can see that blue shape that's round on top, kind of spiky on the bottom. And I really want to be able to make a video for you where I'm painting to a piece of music that really moves me, but the issue is that I can only play for you royalty-free music. And so the challenge of finding a royalty-free song that does that to me is kind of what's keeping me from doing that. Still just working on those little rectangles. Some of them are very insinuated. Some may not even be fully defined. We're going to try something. I've never actually used these inks. I've had the gold and the silver for a while. I've never used them, so you guys are going to get to see me use them for the first time. And maybe it will be the end of this video, but maybe not. So they have a little eyedropper on them, and these, I know that like the Liquitex gold and silver, the metallic paints, especially in the basics, they're very, very transparent. These are not. These are quite opaque. So I'm just going to put a few drops there. I have that little blank spot still. And let's see what happens with the palette knife. I'm just going to smear it around in there. It's going to mix with some of that paint that's still wet, and it'll just overlay the rest of it. Just pulling it down in there a little bit. And now I've got that little blank spot covered, and I like that silver ink. I think I'm going to add some more. Where should I add some more? I think I'm just going to add some more right across here. That was a full eyedropper, just kind of squirted out onto there. You could use a brush. Now with these inks, because I haven't used them before, I don't know if the rule stands about, you know, how much to thin them. But if the opportunity comes where I decide I'm gonna thin it and really let it streak and run, I'm not gonna worry about it. Throw rules out the window when you're painting abstract. That's what spray varnish is for. Lots and lots of spray varnish. Maybe let's put a drip of gold there next to it. I think that gold will be a really nice complement to the unbleached titanium, but also really stand out because this is quite a monochromatic painting so far. Take it in there, let it blend with that silver a little bit. I'm gonna get some more in there. I really liked that. Sometimes when I go super quiet while I'm doing this, it's because I found a zone and I want to try and stay there for a second. Oh, I thought I could recover some of that gold. Maybe I'll just kind of flick it. Let's see what happens if it'll run a bit. I'm gonna kind of put some right along there. Just kind of nudge it across with the tip of the knife. I'm really just playing here and seeing what happens. I don't think that we do that enough. You know, as artists, I think that we get so caught up in trying to make the next painting that we can be proud of that we don't play. Hopefully you can still see that. No, that's not gonna run. That's all right. I have a handy little spray bottle. Just give it a light mist. This doesn't give a real heavy spray, this spray bottle, just enough to kind of get things going. Sorry, I know you can't see that for a second. I kind of like that. Okay, so I just had an idea for something. There was a hair stuck in my paint here, and when I lifted it, it left a little bit of texture, but it also kind of revealed some of the underlying colors. So let's see what happens when we do that on purpose. No, I'm not gonna stick my hair into the painting. I'm gonna take a paper towel and crunch it up. You could use a sponge or whatever you wanna do. Just very loosely, even bubble wrap or something. I wonder if I have some bubble wrap around here. I'll look in a minute. I'm just gonna kind of mush into there. That's kind of fun. All I'm really doing is just lifting that paint, introducing a bit of texture. Okay, I think for reals now, I am gonna let it dry because I have some ideas for other directions I wanna take it, particularly with this texture that I've created, but also over here. But what I've decided I kinda wanna do over here is gonna require that paint being dry. So we'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, so quite a bit of this is dry now, and I'm gonna use my little sponge roller that I bought today, and it's dry. And let's try the black ink. So I'm gonna drip, we're just experimenting again. I'm gonna drip it onto this textured area. And I think I'm gonna drip some of the silver ink here as well. Now I am starting to develop some ideas. I have a few ideas for things I wanna see throughout here. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. I'm just gonna go right into that ink and just roll it. It's going down into that texture nicely, just like I hoped it would. And we'll pull it down here. Let's get a little bit more. So remember, if you don't have these materials that I'm using, I don't want you to feel like you have to run out and buy them or you can't do something like this. Use what you've got laying around. You know, I think that any of us who do any kind of art or craft or anything, we've got things laying around we can use. I've got things that have been laying around here for years that I bet if I let myself get nice and creative, I bet I could figure out a way to incorporate them into an abstract painting. Now, I don't really like the texture on the edges here. So let's see if we can do something with that. I'm going to take my number 12 cloud brush. I wet it in the water a little bit. I'm just going to see if I can kind of smoke out those edges. I've never used this ink before, so I'm not fully sure that this will even work. It seems like it's working, but I don't know what the drying time is on this ink. Ooh, that's kind of fun. It's kind of removing it off the top of that texture. Take this clean paper towel and wipe it. Actually, just get it wet a little bit and it seems to come up pretty easily where I don't want it. And I don't know if that's just because it hasn't cured yet. Maybe once it cures after a little while, you wouldn't be able to do that. I'm not fully sure. Just run it over that texture again. I really dig that texture that I got from just blotting it with the paper towel and then running the ink over it with my little sponge roller. All right, I'm gonna lay out some cadmium red medium, and I'm gonna take a palette knife and I'm gonna pick up a good amount of it. See, I got quite a bit of paint there. I'm gonna come over here to this stripe. I like the placement of this stripe, but I don't necessarily like it in that color. And I'm just gonna place my knife right on the edge of my canvas. See, it's at an angle, so that blob is, if I push down, it'll squish out that way. And I'm just gonna streak it down as far as it'll go. Kind of turning my palette knife flat as I go. As the paint diminishes, I'm rolling it until it's about flat. I cleaned off my little sponge roller. Just ran it under some water, a little bit of soap. I think it's stained, but it's clean. And it's just barely damp. And I'm just gonna run it over that red. Let's get a little bit of water in there. And maybe I'll just load up with some more. I've never used one of these sponge rollers before, and I saw it today and I thought that might be really fun to use. So we're just gonna try it. That's a lot of water. Okay. There we go. That's about there. I really like that red. I feel like the red and gold are real nice complements to each other.
you doing?
Okay, my roller's cleaned off. I'm gonna get some black, which is starting to dry out. I don't know that this roller is gonna be my favorite new tool, but it's all right for now. Started, I'll just see it through. I'm gonna roll this black along the bottom edge here. Maybe I just didn't like the texture with the red, because I do kind of like the texture it's given me with the black. Okay, I turned it this way because I have an idea for something I want to put right here, and that is actually still just a little bit wet. I've got this little palette knife, and guys, if you don't have palette knives, you can use anything. Use like an old spatula or an old credit card, something. And I'm gonna kind of carve out just kind of an abstract little house or something. I feel like I don't want to use this knife for it. This should work better. Kind of this little angled one. Make our little roof. Streak it down. And good amount of pressure there so that paint's nice and thin. I think I'm even going to take this little scrubby brush, maybe I'll wet it in a jar, dry it on the paper towel so it's just barely damp. I'm going to kind of fuzz out that side, give it a really indefinite side. I'm not trying to remove all of that white paint, just kind of taking it out and maybe up into this little dark streak that I see there. Oh, I like that a lot, actually. See, I don't think you can plan things like this out. And that's why I say I don't expect you to really be watching this, learning how to make this painting that I'm doing, because you might not have that dark streak in that same spot as me. And it may look out of place in another spot. And I am underbinding my paint, but like I said, abstract, I don't care. I have a big old can of spray varnish. I'll just give it 6 or 7 coats of spray varnish and call it good. I think I'm gonna stick with this old brush, get a bit of black. Maybe I'll just take a bit under here. Let's see what happens. If I don't like it, I can change it. Because that white's still wet, it's not doing what I had in mind. So we'll let it dry. Maybe I'll just scrape that little part away. My knife, that's a cool thing about palette knives, is if you don't like something, scrape it away. Maybe I'll do another one. I think I'll use the little small angle on here. Maybe I'll just scratch in a couple smaller ones. Maybe they're in the distance or... Let's get a little bit of black on that same back edge, that little edge at the back. I'm just kind of obliterating the house just a little bit, just so we have a suggestion of the shape. I don't really want to say, here's a little house. You know, have this perfectly formed, not that any of these were perfectly formed, but have this perfectly obvious house in this really abstract kind of area. That one's already pretty broken at the top edge, so I'm just going to take a bit of black up the bottom. Maybe this one needs a little bit. Ooh, I have an idea for this one. A little bit of extra black, and I'm going to start up here. A decent amount of pressure, and start streaking that black down over the edge of the house. Like that. Okay, that red is pretty dry. I mean, it's still a little wet, but it's not so wet that I'm going to start lifting it. So I'm going to get a heavy amount of my red. I really want to make the top of this a very solid red. Kind of like that little shape, so I'm just going to cut around it. And maybe that's where I'll let my red start to kind of fizzle out, just kind of dry brushing it over this area. So all throughout your painting, I want you to stand back and look at it. Try to decide, you know, what parts are you really looking at? What parts do you focus on when you look at it? What parts do you not look at so much? What feels awkward? What doesn't? And make changes from there. So when I look at this, I kind of feel like everything from the red stripe this way is really my focus, particularly right here where I have the little houses. So this part, everything on the other side of the red line kind of feels useless to me. It feels like it doesn't fit in with everything else, like I can't really pull that in. So rather than saying, well, I guess that's just an ugly spot, I'm going to say, all right, well, if I'm already not looking at this spot, then I'm really going to make it so there's nothing to look at there, and I'm going to paint it black. And that's what I'm about to do. So I'm just going to pull some black paint out, slap it down on there. Okay, I feel like that fits in a lot better. I like that. So I think I'm going to put you into time lapse for a second. I just want to kind of pull a few details out on this little house. I don't want to make it obviously, you know, a detailed house, but I just want to pull it forward just a little bit more. And just so you know, I'm using my 1/4 inch angle brush to do so. liking these streaks. Never be afraid to, use unconventional tools, including your hands and whatever. Feel like you need to streak it with your fingers? Do it. It's called full contact painting, and it's completely acceptable. I'm just going to keep going with this for a minute. I feel like I've hit a zone. That's what I want for you guys to do. Find a zone. Don't look at the painting as a whole, the whole time. I mean, every once in a while you can stand back and see what you think, particularly if you don't know where else to go with it. For sure, stand back and kind of take the whole thing in. But when you find something that you're enjoying doing on a small scale like this, I'm really enjoying the streaking part. All I'm focused on is what the streaks look like. I'm not paying attention to how it looks in the grand scheme of the painting. I like to do houses quite often in abstract work. I don't know what it is. I don't have any real reason why, but houses fascinate me, particularly if they look old or abandoned. Maybe nobody lives in it, nobody has for a long time. I feel like houses, they for sure take on the personality of the person who lives in them, but I think that when nobody lives in a house, it kind of develops its own personality, becomes its own entity. Lay down a little extra black paint. I wanted to keep that streaking going, but right here under this house, it's already a light color. So I'm going to take some black under it instead. And I could be using matte medium here to streak things, but, like I said, sometimes, especially in abstract, I think it's nice to just forget about rules. Don't worry about underbinding your paint. Don't worry about, anything. Just do what you need to do to get your expression out. So all I'm really doing to this house, to really say this is a house, all I'm really doing is just adding a little bit of a shadow under the eave. That's it, nothing else. I'm going to take this black line all the way into our black section here. Maybe that'll kind of be the connection between the two sides of the painting. I'm interested to hear how this painting makes you feel. Does it stir up some kind of a feeling or a memory or an emotion? And it's okay if not. If the answer is no, it's okay to like a painting and not know why. I know sometimes we feel like, well, if I can't explain why I like it, then maybe I shouldn't like it. It's okay to like a painting and say, I don't really know what it makes me feel. I just like it. It just makes me happy or whatever. And it's okay to not like a painting and not be able to say why. But I'm curious if it brings to mind anything specific for anyone. It doesn't actually bring to mind anything specific to me. And I mean, I haven't really stood back and taken it in as a whole for a little while, but I don't really know that it's making me feel any one way in particular. Not yet anyway, maybe it will. But right now, I'm not judging any of that. I'm just enjoying the process a lot. I think I am going to take a little bit of a break from this because I'm at the point where I know that I want to keep going. It doesn't feel just right just yet, but I don't really know where I want to go with it. So I'm going to take a bit of a break, get away from it, not look at it, not think about it for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll come back. I feel like I'm getting close to being done. Okay, so I took a little bit of a longer break than I expected to, and it's actually the next day. So all of this paint is dry. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to clean up a glass palette since this is new for us. I'm just going to take a spray bottle of water. It's just water, nothing else. And I'm just going to mist down everything that has paint on it. I'm just going to let that sit for maybe 30 seconds, a minute. As soon as you can see it's starting to wrinkle, the paint, see, it's ready. It'll come right off. I'm just going to take a palette knife, you could use a credit card, anything, and it just scrapes off very, very easily. I'm going to spray it with some water again, and then just quickly wipe it down. There you go, and it's ready to use again. Okay, I decided to put my canvas back onto my easel rather than paint on the table today because I feel like I'm just going to finish it up. I have some ideas for things I want to do up in this area. I want to do just a little bit of detail work to my houses, and then I have a couple of other ideas, particularly with this section right here. So we're just going to do it on the easel today. So last night I went home and I edited all of the footage that I filmed yesterday, and I was able to look at the image on a smaller scale, which really helps to kind of analyze how all of the pieces work together and see areas that I want to change. And one thing that I felt like I wanted to work with is this right here. So I've got a very solid ridge here, and it looks like the houses are sitting on a ledge. You know, then there's something kind of running down. Well, if these are sitting on a ledge, then I want to push this back a bit so that it's a little more in the distance. That will really help us get kind of a three-dimensional look with this ridge here. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to use some matte medium and black and just work very thinly. I might throw some silver, maybe some gold in there here and there, but I'm going to work very thinly, not to obliterate all of this. I mean, unless I do, I'm open to it, but just to kind of darken it and push it back. So on my palette here, I'm going to take some matte medium and I'm just going to pour some out right there. And then I'm going to lay out just a little bit of black paint. I'm going to use my 1/2-inch flat brush and wet it in my jar. Wipe a little bit of that off. Load up with quite a bit of medium. I want to make this black fairly thin. Just pull a bit of black into there. I'm gonna pull it out and you can see about how transparent it is, and I think that's good. So I'm gonna start right on the edge here. I'm gonna try and go around my houses as much as possible, but if I accidentally go over one, I'm not gonna sweat it. And I'm gonna streak this up. Now remember guys, I'm not following any rules. I'm not, you know, creating something specific. I'm just going with it, seeing what is happening and then deciding to let that keep happening or to change it. But I'm not judging the painting as a whole. I'm just gonna lightly streak that up, let it kind of dissipate as it moves up, because I have the idea to kind of fog in some white up in the top half of this area. Okay, not too bad there. I'm gonna let that dry so I don't pull that dark color off again. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and just work some very, very simple details into this house, or into these houses. And maybe you can see now, you've got a little bit of a better viewpoint, that this house really has next to no detail in it. I mean, aside from kind of the angled roof, and then we've got a darker area here under this white line, kind of makes it seem like that's poking forward and that's a flat surface. So it kind of says it's like the eave of a house. And that's really the only two defining characteristics of a house. In abstract painting, you don't have to say, well, I want a house here, and draw the entire house and give it all of the details. Make a simple suggestion of a house. If nobody else ever sees that house but you, there's nothing wrong with that. You still may be looking at this saying, I don't see a house. But to me, I see several little houses. And I'm not gonna go and put doors and windows and chimneys and bricks and all of that on these. Just lay out a little bit of white and a little bit of unbleached titanium. I'm gonna use my number 4 bright. And I'm just gonna kind of go back and forth between these 3 colors, just popping little highlights and shadows and blending spots into the background, just wherever the mood strikes me at the moment. So for example, right there, I just decided to blend out that side, completely take it away, let it blend in with the background. We'll just define the edge here a little bit more, and not to define the edge of the house necessarily, but to define the edge of this ridge. I really like that ridge, and I want to make sure that it's more obvious than the houses, because that's just what I decided. I hope that you guys are working on an abstract painting with me, and I hope that you're not, you know, struggling to create the same thing that I'm creating, because I guarantee you, if I were to try and do this again, I wouldn't be able to. I would end up with something completely different. And I think I'm going to be consistent from house to house in kind of giving it a dark spot under one of the eaves. I don't know, that's how I feel right now. I may do it on one and decide, no, I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm pretty sure I said this yesterday, but I think it's important, so we'll talk about it again. I think that, you know, if you feel stuck, or even if you're brand new to painting, you know, you don't know what all of your brushes and all of your materials do, abstract is the perfect way to figure that out. Because, you know, there's no rules about, you know, perspective or color theory, any of that. Just grab a couple of colors that you like, a couple of brushes or even materials that you have no idea what they do, and start experimenting. Just do it and have fun. Please don't pressure yourself to come out with a painting that looks amazing. And, you know, even painting abstract art, it takes a lot of practice to kind of know, you know, what looks good where, what kind of colors look good with each other, what kind of techniques can you use to get a certain look, and to even just figure out what it is that you do and you don't like. Yep, I am really liking these houses. And I think I'm about done with them. And honestly, my favorite house is this one, this little one over here. This one actually kind of feels like it's begging for a little swipe of white right there. Oh, that was a bit aggressive. Okay, now I said I wanted to kind of smoke this area out with some white and probably some silver. I think I'm going to use a heavy amount of that silver up in here. But what I noticed after I finished my houses and then stood back, I intentionally left this little white part that we smoked out the side of the house from yesterday. I left that there, and it's going up, and that about looks like what I want to go for up here. So that kind of gave me the idea to leave that and then fill the top half, maybe like it's coming from here and going up and collecting up here. So I think that's kind of what I'm going to do. So for that, I'm going to use my number 12 cloud brush, and I'm going to wet it just a little bit. See, I didn't dip it all the way in the water, just the very end, and then just kind of wipe it on the paper towel. I don't want it soaking wet, but I don't want it completely dry. And then I'm going to get some matte medium and some white. Very thin, very, very thin color. And I'm just going to start kind of scrubbing it on. Not going for clouds, just a very random scrub. I'm picking something up in the white there, and I can't tell what it is. It's either that gold ink or some of the black paint that was underbound yesterday, but I don't know if you can tell, my white is a little bit kind of grayed out or brown over on this side. I'm going to take my silver ink and put some out there. I didn't clean off my brush. I don't want to cover my red. Let's go ahead and set this red apart. Give it a very stark contrast. Maybe just right even here, not all the way down. make sure that whenever you're unsure of what you just did or what you're going to do next, make sure you stand back. I know I tell you guys that all the time, but the reason I tell you all the time is because every once in a while, somebody will say to me, you know, you always tell us to stand back, and I never do. But then one time I did, and I couldn't believe the difference in my painting, standing back and looking at it versus, you know, standing directly in front of it. I'm going to grab just a hint of black. Just a hint, I said, not all of the black. And I'm just going to lightly streak it in here and there because I don't want this to get pure white. Okay, there's my painting so far, and I have a couple of ideas to do something, but I'm kind of scared because it could be the end of the painting. It could be that moment where I'm like, nope. Or, I mean, not the end, but you know, I'd have to drastically change what I've got going on. So I don't know if I dare yet. So I'm gonna mess around with the idea for a minute, and if I get up the guts to do it, I'll be back to do that. And if I don't, hopefully I'll have a different idea. Okay, I did actually chicken out from what I was thinking I wanted to do. And the reason I chickened out is because I am, you know, painting for myself and doing abstract. However, I am also trying to make sure that it's something that you guys want to see. Now, if I were painting for myself, I may have just gone ahead and done it, because if I mess it up, I can keep working on it for a few days. Well, I don't really have that luxury, and you guys are only going to stay interested for so long. So as you may or may not be able to tell, it's pretty abstract. I did flip my canvas upside down. And that's because I decided that the last part I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that gold ink, really fill this corner with quite a bit of it, and let it run down this way. So I'm going to prepare the canvas to start letting that ink run by using my water bottle and just kind of spraying a little bit. That way the water will give the ink somewhere to go. Not a ton of water, just enough to lightly dampen the surface there where I know I want the ink to go. All right, so I have my gold ink, shook it up, loaded the dropper. I don't really like those runs like that. I think they look really, really forced. So just another light mist with the spray bottle. And I'm going to take my cloud brush that's just slightly damp and just kind of nudge those lines. Let that gold start kind of feathering. I like the look where it just kind of tapers out, feathers and streaks. I like that much better than these straight, hard lines of dripping. That's just not my thing. If that's what you like, that's perfectly fine. Okay, I know that was a lot of time lapse, but I swear I know exactly how I want to finish this painting. I naturally had a line right here, of course, but also like a textured line that I could see down this way. So I'm gonna clean off as much of the ink from everything on this side of the line as possible. Do one more thing on this side, and then I think I'm gonna be happy with it. I feel like this is the last piece that I need to complete it. Now, it's altogether possible that I'm gonna keep working on this after I publish this video. This is quite possibly not the end of this painting. If I add more to it or change it, I'll post it and show you guys, but we'll see. Either way, I'm gonna end the video after I do this last part. Just some water and some white paint. And I'm going to make sure that this line is defined. Okay, for now I'm pretty happy with it. I will quite possibly be painting over my signature and changing this at some point, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and sign it. And there's our abstract painting. Those of you who have never been fans of abstract art, I hope I was able to make you just think about it a little bit differently, if not change your mind completely, about what abstract art can be used for and how it can be appreciated by anyone. If you liked this video, make sure that you subscribe so that you can paint with me every week. Also, make sure you're following me on Instagram because I know for sure I will be adding to this painting and changing it, and I'll post a time lapse as well as the finished product on Instagram. Don't forget to tag me in your paintings on Facebook and Instagram so that I can see how your abstract work turned out. Thank you as always for painting with me, everyone, and I'll see you next time.